Meantime, let's talk about China, because tensions between the U.S. and China are running high following, of course, the U.S. downing of that suspected Chinese spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina. For more on what investors should try to maybe look for as this whole story develops, Michelle Cruz de Cabrera, she's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, CNBC contributor, and so much more. Rhodium Group's founding partner, Daniel Rosen, is also joining us this morning. Thank you both. Michelle, I'm curious your take on the balloon. Is there more to this, you think, than meets the eye? Have we done things like this? Should we be furious? Is this standard operating procedure? What is this?
Well, I think when it comes to the investment community and the business community in the United States, Andrew, what is very significant about this balloon incident is that it caught the zeitgeist of the American public. It really codified for Americans who maybe were aware that we had tensions with the Chinese, really crystallized for them. You know, on Friday afternoon, CNN interviewed an independent videographer on Myrtle Beach, and he said the beaches were packed. It was one of the coldest days in February, and yet the parking lots were full, the beaches were full because everyone wanted to see this Chinese balloon. Why is that significant? Because when Washington sees that, they know they have to react. So you saw this unanimously hawkish approach, and this comes when there are three important things happening in Washington. What to do about TikTok? Is the U.S. going to start prohibiting Americans from investing in Chinese companies? And then also the China Select Committee. So all of those things are going to be impacted because of this balloon.
Daniel, what do you think about that? To me, the interesting component part of this is, does the U.S. prevent American companies from doing business in China rather than the opposite way around, which is, I think, how a lot of people have been thinking about it up until very recently?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of things here. I mean, you asked the question, is there more to this? And I think one of the key questions is how much more is there, right? This is not, China doesn't make a single balloon, right? China does things at scale. And I think the U.S. concern is that there's probably a whole fleet of these kinds of balloons that we'll have to deal with all the time if we don't draw a really, really bright line around this incident and make clear that this is just not acceptable. So that explains the, I think, extreme reaction that we've seen. But in terms of who has leverage over who to threaten to pull back from conversation, I think that's absolutely clear right now. China needs geopolitical good news much more than the U.S. does. China is on the cusp of a debt crisis for local government financing. And the IMF in its China Article 4 report put out a few days ago, which would have been really front page news if it weren't for this balloon, has said that China's property industry is already in crisis. And the concern in Beijing that global investors seeing yet more escalation in the geopolitics with the U.S. are that much more inclined to wait on the sideline or even more pull back further from China instead of buying into this good news bounce. Yeah.